Bungie's Destiny has been a runaway success for the developer and Activision. After hyping up the sequel for a number of months, Destiny 2 is finally here on consoles. We recently got our hands on all three console versions, namely the PS4, Xbox One, and PS4 Pro builds. The original Destiny was a cross-generation release, which meant that Bungie never really got the opportunity to fully utilize the potential of current-gen consoles. And although later expansion packs like Rise of Iron were only available on current-gen consoles, the game as a whole didn't really push the PS4 and the Xbox One to their limits. However, with Destiny 2, Bungie's next big shooter is a current-gen exclusive, and the effects of that are quite visible. The very first thing that you'll observe as soon as you take your first few steps in the world of Destiny 2 is the extremely beautiful art style and color palette. Yes, Destiny 2 looks far more attractive and intriguing than its predecessor, thanks to its different but familiar art style. But perhaps what shines through the most in this game are the lighting effects. It's simply wonderful.
Evacuation Order 77 is in effect. This is not a drill. All civilians report to designated...
Using a mix of global illumination and physical-based rendering, Destiny 2 has plenty of dynamic lighting effects, various alpha and volumetric effects along with a physics-based particle system. This, along with modern graphical methodologies such as post-processing, motion blur, depth of field, and intricately designed enemy animations, along with high-resolution textures, particularly on the PS4 Pro, really bring the whole game together. Destiny 2 also uses a ton of screen space reflection effects, coupled with weather effects such as rain. As mentioned before, everything is PBR supported, so every light source has a different effect on each material and the way they react to it. It really is a gorgeous looking game overall. In hindsight, Bungie did a great job of supporting 4 different platforms with the original Destiny, and they did an even better job at achieving parity between the PS4 and Xbox One versions. The original Destiny ran at a native 1080p resolution on the PS4 and Xbox One, with a target frame rate of 30 frames per second. And it seems like Bungie have achieved almost identical results on both consoles with Destiny 2. The PS4 version of the sequel runs at a native 1920 by 1080 resolution. However, the Xbox One version seems to have a bit of a soft look at times, which possibly indicates that a dynamic resolution might be in place.
Zavala, civilians, report to evac point. Zabala's Red Legion. Makora, what do you got?
They're elite, ruthless, and rumor is they have never known defeat.
Until today. Today they face Guardians.
But Zavala, they're attacking the Traveler.
The Traveler waits. We protect our people at any cost.
The Traveler? What is that thing they're attaching to it?
However, both versions are a one-to-one match with barely any differences in terms of core texture quality, texture filtering, or draw distances. Both versions run at a steady 30 frames per second, and we observed no drops during our playthrough. However, the most impactful benefit to image quality, as expected, comes on the PlayStation 4 Pro version. Destiny 2 achieves 4K resolution on the Pro. However, it's not native 4K. The game runs in a checkerboard 4K, and this can be clearly determined by looking closely at the artifacts of several objects and materials. But really, you'd need to zoom in to actually see this kind of detail. Furthermore, much has been said about the lack of 60 frames per second on the PS4 Pro version. This version doesn't provide a special 60 frames per second mode, and this may sound disappointing to fans, but there is a genuine reason why Destiny 2 can't hit 60 FPS on the PS4 Pro. And the answer is pretty simple: the CPU. Let's be honest here, the CPU on the PS4 Pro is a minor upgrade over what's found in the base PlayStation 4, which itself was pretty archaic to begin with. Expecting this level of image quality with all the physics-based particle effects, complex post-processing, and a 1080p resolution along with a 60 frames per second option is simply too much for the PS4 Pro to handle. We need to realize the fact that the PS4 Pro is a half step up from the base PS4, and it's not a true next-gen console. If Bungie really wanted to achieve 60 FPS, they would have to implement a dynamic resolution buffer, which would scale accordingly so that 60 FPS could be maintained. Games like Titanfall 2 actually went below HD resolutions to achieve the 60 FPS cap, but we don't think Bungie wanted to compromise on image quality and visual effects as they form such a huge part of the experience of this game. But let's be fair, the PS4 Pro version of Destiny 2 does achieve what it sets out to do. A checkerboard 4K image quality, a steady frame rate of 30 FPS, along with improved shadow effects, draw distances, and texture quality, and other minor improvements highlight the PS4 Pro build. It doesn't sound like a ton of improvement compared to the base PS4 version, but for a game that's as heavily CPU based as Destiny 2 is, this is in a way a pretty remarkable achievement. Destiny 2 looks great on all platforms, but there's one issue that we want to point out. It seems that some distant objects that are not in the immediate vicinity of the player are rendered in much lower resolution. Jaggies are apparent on distant objects, such as fences. This is much reduced on the PS4 Pro build, but they're quite noticeable on the PS4 and Xbox One. We think that Destiny 2 may possibly be using a resolution reconstruction technique for faraway objects in order to maintain a higher overall resolution, similar to what Quantum Break did on the Xbox One. However, this particular issue isn't a deal breaker by any means, and it won't impact the experience. At least in our case it didn't. In the end, whatever platform you play Destiny 2 on, Bungie has delivered. In many ways, Destiny 2 acts as a benchmark tool for each console's potential from a technical perspective. It'll be interesting to see how Destiny 2 performs on the PC next month, and then later on with the Xbox One X.